Welcome to this webinar series on V3 Discovery. As a reminder, the core of Discovery is really translating what the student currently does into variables that will help support competitive integrated employment. And we've organized those variables into the 4 C's. So no matter what step you're on, no matter what kind of information you're gathering, we're really trying to frame those into what does this tell us about the individual's interests and preferences that we've titled choices. What information have we gathered about the student's skills or abilities that could be contributions to a potential employer? What might be the conditions for employment? So really reframing barriers or reframing those challenges into conditions for employment. And who does the student know? Who do they hang out with? Who does the family hang out with that could be potential social capital to be able to use to make those connections to employment? So once you have all of your interview and survey data and have conducted all of your IC observations, we're going to pull all that data together into step 4, which is going to be the V3 Discovery Summary. The V3 Discovery Summary is a form that you can find in your materials folder in the Google Drive. And it has 3 sections. Section 1, again, is the vision. That's going to inform your post-secondary goals for your transition plan on the IEP. Section 2 is outlining those 4 C's as it relates specifically to employment. It's what we're going to use to make that match to a potential employer. And it involves a meeting called a brain blizzard with very specific process and outcomes, which we'll outline here in this webinar. And then section 3 is the visual resume, is how is the individual going to demonstrate for a potential employer what their contributions are to that employment setting. So the first section of the V3 Discovery Summary is the vision, and this is the section that's going to help inform the transition plan in the IEP, specifically the post-secondary goals. And so you're going to use the V3 Discovery interview and survey information, the observation data, and any other transition assessments that you've utilized, as well as the EDP. The post-secondary goals need to align with the student's educational development plan. But you're going to use all of that information to help inform the post-secondary goals. And there's kind of 4 key areas we look at. One is the post-secondary education and or training. So what education and or training might the student need after school in order to achieve their employment goals? So that could be, technical school, community college, university, etc. The second is really the focus, the primary focus of Discovery, which is what is the student's employment goal or career goal? And again, all of the information that you've collected should help inform what that career goal might be. And then, if appropriate, the data could also help inform independent living goals. So what does the student want to do in terms of where they want to live, how they want to live after school is complete? And it's important to remember that the IEP must also include at least one measurable annual IEP goal related to the student's vision. So any of these areas of post-secondary goals might actually be lifted to what kind of skills does the student need that we would include in the IEP goals in order to help them be able to achieve these post-secondary goals. The second section then is the vocational profile. This really brings together those 4 C's. This is going to be what you're going to utilize to help make a match to potential employers. It really is an alternative to traditional evaluation reports where you're often looking at numbers compared to other people and that kind of thing. This is that in-depth study of one. What does this student bring to the table and how can we translate that to employment opportunities? It's robust in that it fully develops aspects of the person's life so that those contributions can be demonstrated and you can make those better matches. It's focused on who the student is currently rather than their challenges and what we need to do to fix the challenges. And it describes the student not based on opinions, but rather based on the facts. What does the student do? What skills do they have? And how and what contribution can they make to a potential employer? So here we go, the 4 C's again. We're going to bring this all together into what we're going to call a brain blizzard. So those choices are, what are the students' passions? What are they interested in? General areas of work interest. I think our experience is often that individuals with complex challenges to employment haven't had enough experiences to even know what jobs might be out there. They tend to choose or pick or say jobs that they either their parents have, or that they, grocery store because they go there frequently, or school because they're there, they have those experiences. And so another reason to really not so much focus on what they're saying, but focused on what they do, that will help you understand their motivating interests and activities that can translate to jobs they would be interested in. Certainly the contributions, that's not just your academic skills, but also those non-academic skills. It's so interesting as we talk to employers, we're so focused on the skill itself and can they do the skill, when employers are really more focused on can they come and initiate independently? Can they complete a task to beginning to end? We can teach and pretty much anybody to do the actual job itself. We want to know someone's going to be there. They can be on time. They can get there independently. They can take their lunch and breaks independently. Those are the kinds of things that employers are looking for. So then, conditions for success. These are employment features that have to be in place or avoided so that the student can perform at their best, demonstrate their contributions, be able to engage at full participation. Those might be how the environment is set up. Those might be times of day that they need to work. What kind of movement needs do they have? Social preferences. It's interesting to me that people will say, well, he really doesn't like to be around people. Well, there's a lot of people that don't want to work those jobs that you're stuck in front of a computer and don't interact with people, and yet there's many of those jobs out there. So what might be some social preferences for that individual that we can look for in the employment setting without having to make too many changes in the employment setting itself? Certainly, what positive behavioral interventions, this has a lot to do with how do employers respond to, or how does the student respond to being corrected, for example. Some employers are going to be more directive about how they confront corrections, and so you're going to want to know how that student responds to those things in order to come up with an environment where that's not going to be a challenge. Their own personal supports and perhaps some instructional strategies. So this is the conditions for success are where we're going to, reframe those challenges. For example, we've had folks that'll say, well, he doesn't have transportation. So instead, reframing that would say, well, he needs to work close to home. If he's not organized, the reframing to condition for success is he needs checklists and visuals in order to stay organized. We've had folks say, well, he has trouble with this or he has trouble with that. You could certainly say we are working on these kinds of things instead of he has trouble with it. We're going to reframe it to the successful focus. And of course, what supports does the student need? So it's really important when you're doing your observations to look through what supports are in place or what supports could be in place that would allow the student to be more successful, whether that be visual schedules and supports, which would include self-management systems, peer-to-peer support or other natural supports in the environment, accommodations, maybe technology. We want to avoid adult support if we can, but there might be times where in order to learn a system, there might be adult supports or service agencies that could help out. So as part of Section 2, the next step after you gather this information, the 4 C's, is to conduct what's called a brain blizzard. Again, we didn't come up with that terminology. That's Neela Benito at the University of South Florida as part of CODI. But essentially, this is taking all of your information and now starting to develop a list of vocational job opportunities related to themes. What themes did you see when you look at all of the information in terms of skills and preferences, etc.? Were there some themes that might be related to a job that the student would be successful at? And so we want to develop a list of what those might be in the student's direct area. Job responsibilities, and then looking at specific employers that are available, not that have a job opening necessarily, but that are in the individual's area that we could explore as potential employers for this particular student. So to do a brain blizzard, the first thing you're going to need to do is plan a meeting. So this will need to be a formal meeting. It might include more people. In fact, it likely does include more people than are conducting your discovery process, which would be the job seeker, which is the student, any family members, friends and neighbors. We've had peers participate, any of your professionals or other, MRS, other agency support folks. You'll want to keep it 6 to 9 people. You get too many and then you get nothing done. And but you'll want to pull these folks together, and you're actually going to perform what's called the brain blizzard. One of the things that's been really helpful for folks is to start out really simple in this process and just have Chartboard up and say what works. What do we know about this student that just works? What do we know for sure doesn't work? And kind of get us all in a mindset for some basic kind of introductory information. For example, this student likes working alone. He enjoys being on the computer. He talks about the weather frequently, so if it's anything to do with weather, we're good. He does need his own work area. It's easily distracted. And if he can read the directions, if the directions are clear and he can read them, he does much better. Versus he does not like when people are standing behind him. Where did we learn that? I see observations of staff standing right behind him, and that was very agitating. Sitting and having to watch others just is not something he's going to do. He does not want to wear formal clothes. And that's another thing as you're looking at those I see observations, is paying attention to, does a student wear similar things every day? Because you'll want to use that as far as making a match. It might be very difficult, especially for someone with autism spectrum disorder, to change their clothing attire in a new job setting if they've been wearing the same clothing type for years and years and years. He does not enjoy sharing his own personal items, and when expectations are unclear, when he's not sure what to do, that's going to cause some challenges for him. So that's just kind of one way to get everybody kind of in the mindset before you start the brain blizzard. Okay, the brain blizzard. We're going to use, if you've had training in media mechanics, it's a basic problem-solving process, which includes using Chartboard or a whiteboard. And the big idea here is to identify 3 to 5 vocational themes, and that really is the blending of that student's preferences, interests, strengths, skills, all of the things that you gathered throughout the process, and coming up with 3 to 5. And you can just brainstorm it to the whole group. Knowing all of the information that we've gathered here, what are 3 to 5 vocational themes that we could put together? And so you're going to want to put one theme on each Chartboard. So you're going to have around the room 3 to 5 themes on a Chartboard. And then for each theme, you want to develop a list of potential skills, duties, tasks, etc. associated with that theme. So for an example, one of the themes might be computers. What are some tasks that, if you're using a computer, the tasks that you need to be able to do? Transcription, data entry, editing movies in Movie Maker. These are some tasks, not necessarily job titles, but tasks that you can do and with a computer. And then from those themes, you're going to have each team member list at least 3 employers, businesses in the local community. And that's why it's going to be important that who you have attend this meeting are people from the local community, consistent with the identified themes and tasks. Really, we say approximately 20 per theme, but I'm amazed sometimes when people do this, how many more in businesses that people come up with. You can use sticky notes. You can do this anyway. There's multiple examples on our website of running this brain blizzard. You can get creative and do it your own way. You don't have to do it the way we've laid it out here, but it really is about starting to link the themes, the tasks related to those themes with employers in the community that would have those kind of jobs available. Not that they're looking for somebody right now. That's not what we're looking for here, that you saw the job in the paper, anything like that. We're saying this employer would have this task as part of his employment agency. That's what you're looking for, which is why you end up oftentimes with even more than 20 per theme. So here's an example of a book theme. And again, these were actual businesses in the community related to that book theme and all of the skills and tasks related to that book theme. So this is just an example. I'm not going to spend any time here, but what your 20 or more job employers might look like. And here's an example of one such, Brain Blizzard. And again, they had 4 themes: music, arts, senior citizens, children, dogs, and cats. And they went through tasks that you need to be able to do, and then they used Post-it notes for the employers in their area that might have this theme and these types of tasks related to it. And this is another example using the actual form that is available to you. This group had 3 themes: office, organization, and assembly. And these were at least 5 of the employers in their area, and each of those that they were going to use to further explore possible job opportunities. So then section 3, the visual resume. How is the student, the individual, going to demonstrate for potential employers what those contributions are that they have? And so this is a very focused resume that paints a very clear picture of the individual and really their skills, contributions, and conditions of employment. Not a whole lot of other things. I've seen a lot of resumes, if you will, from individuals with disabilities that seems to be more focused on what they enjoy doing, what their leisure time activities are, and etc. Certainly in most interviews, I always like to compare it to, if you go to an interview, what likely is going to get asked? Well, they might ask you one question about what you like to do in your free time. They like to know that you're a well-rounded person. However, most of what they're going to ask is, what can you bring to our employment agency? And so this is the way that the student is going to demonstrate what those contributions are, because likely, especially for individuals who have complex barriers to employment, in an interview setting, especially in competition with someone without a disability, they're going to have a very difficult time securing that job. Because in an interview setting, especially when you think about students with autism spectrum disorder, the social skills alone required to make it through an interview process is extremely challenging. And so we have to come up with alternative ways for these individuals to be able to demonstrate the contribution, because sometimes the barriers are very overt for them upon meeting someone for the first time. So we need to have other ways that we can demonstrate what contributions that they can make to that potential employee. So the visual resume can come in many forms. It could be written just like a traditional kind of resume, but often it's a portfolio. This is a link to the Rural Institute's examples of, they call theirs representational portfolio, but same idea. We needed a V, so visual resumes. But it could be portfolio, it could be a video, could be a PowerPoint. We have some individuals that are starting their own business, so they have a business card. Any way that the potential employee can demonstrate their contributions to that employer. Because again, alongside of, if we're going through the traditional interview process and resume process, oftentimes what's noticeable is the disability. This is a way to make what's noticeable is the contribution. There are other examples of representational portfolios or visual resumes. This happens to be Eric Carter's one page. He calls it an employment profile. I really like, because it gets right down to the point. What do I bring to the job? What is valuable support for me at work? And so it just gets right to right to the point of laying those variables out, as well as a little bit about me and what do I enjoy. But that's the smaller part of the portfolio or the employment profile. And this, again, is another example from some of our folks that have been doing this over the years of laying out a couple pager, that looks more like a flyer, if you will. Like, here's me. I'm a high school senior. Here are my strengths. Here are the areas that I'm going to need support. Here's what I'd like, my vision for myself. Here are my accomplishments. Here are my skills. And so, again, there's no right or wrong about how to do this, except for making sure that it's strengths-based, it's contribution-based, it's not challenge-based. Here. So just some tips for creating and helping the individual create their visual resume. I can't say it enough, portraying the competence, not the challenges. Be specific, really action verbs. What can the student do? What does the student do? And pictures or video of them doing those jobs. I've met individuals that when you meet them, you would be shocked to know that they can take an entire engine apart and put it back together. And yet when you see them in that environment performing the skill, that's when employers are going to go, oh yeah, that's what I need. So emphasize those strengths, so show strategies that work. So there might be visuals that the student is going to need, or some behavior supports, self-management systems. You're going to want to have those in there. I saw a really nice one the other day where the student was really saying, these are the tools that help me be successful. And one of them was a self-management system. And the employer was like, well, I think half of my staff needs that. So it can be a benefit all the way around. So, and then of course, always turning those challenges into conditions for success. So that wraps up the V3 Discovery Summary, or Step 4. And so once you've completed all of the activities related to the Discovery Summary, you're going to use that information as part of Step 5 in the employment development.